Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Heltzel, and I'm coming to you on behalf of the Peace Pentagon. The Peace Pentagon is a conference and training center located in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. It's a place for sacred activism and progressive programming. And today I have the honor to be speaking with Congressman Tim Ryan with the 13th District in Ohio. And I'm really happy and honored to be with you today, Tim, because we met years ago over the topic of mindfulness. And I realized that just last month, actually just a few weeks ago, marks 5 years of your book launching. Believe that, right? A Mindful Nation. It's been 5 years since that's been out. And I remember when you released that book, and it just seemed like, was talking about bringing the spirit back to America, and it just seemed like everything was so crazy then. But everything is like, it feels like the wheels have fallen off of like craziness within the United States, within the Oval Office, I should say. And so I just want to get your perspective on from the time that book came through for you and the wisdom that it shared. And here we are 5 years later, and it feels like even crazier. What are your thoughts around that?
It's funny you bring it up because I'm actually re-releasing the book in the fall, and actually going to re-release it under another title, same book, but other title called Healing America. And I read through it again, I don't sit around and read my own books, but I had figured I better go through it and see, and any tweaks or a new forward and all of that stuff. And I read through it and I thought the exact same thing that you just said. It's like I could have written the thing today, and it speaks to just the disconnection in our society, the amount of information coming at us, the divisions that we have between us, and how it's the same thing but worse. So it really struck me that I'm glad we're re-releasing it, because we still haven't. Maybe we had to get to this point to really say, okay, this is really out of control. How do we kind of hit the reset button? And so I think it's more relevant today than it was when I wrote it 5 years ago.
And 5 years, a lot has happened, I think, with everyone's perception and awareness of mindfulness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Has your vision changed, or when you speak to it now, do you hear different conversations coming back to you?
Yeah, it's amazing how mainstream it has become. And not, mindfulness is one meditation practice, TM, and the work that the David Lynch Foundation is doing with regard to transcendental meditation is unbelievable with regard to veterans and schools. You see the practice of yoga. In fact, in DC last week, we did a Wounded Warrior fundraiser at the hot yoga studio I go to here in DC, with a veteran teaching the class who doesn't have any legs. He's a double amputee and was having all kinds of post-traumatic stress issues. And he found yoga to be very healing for him. Then he became a yoga teacher, and just a real powerful voice within the veteran community about kind of these complementary approaches to help heal veterans. And so those are the kind of things that are happening. It's like you can't pick up a magazine today. You can't turn on the TV without hearing something along the lines of these alternative practices becoming more and more mainstream. The VA is doing a lot more with these practices within the VA system. Schools are doing a lot more. The healthcare system is starting to really move towards these approaches. And it's really been amazing to watch, and it's really healing people, and it's saving us a lot of money, and it's a win all the way around. And I just hope that we can continue down this path and really expedite it, because to me, these practices are the antidote to everything else that's going on in society. So anytime I get an opportunity to speak about it, we're doing it. And I should mention that we were able to get some money just this year. Again, I've been working on this now 4 or 5 years, where we're actually starting a wellness program on Capitol Hill for members of Congress, for their staffs, for people who work on Capitol Hill, whether it's the Capitol Police or the Library of Congress, where there will be a wellness program that will include these practices. There will be rooms made available for quiet time so that you can kind of reserve them and go in. It's a very holistic approach, but it's happening on Capitol Hill now too. So maybe there's hope.
I do think sometimes it does seem like I kind of envision it too. When you clean, you're going to change the room and you're going to make some really big differences in the room. You kind of have to throw all the shit out and, let it fall over the floor and reorganize it. And it feels like that's what's happening with not even, just within politics, but within a lot of different, the way anything that's kind of, living in the wrong way is being called out and pulled into the light.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's just happening in so many different arenas, as having a human experience, that it does feel overwhelming. But you're absolutely right. The mindfulness is everywhere. And at the 6, 7, 8 years ago, people are just thinking, what are you even talking about? And now it is really integrated into a lot of cultures and business and everything. So it's fascinating to see that it's reaching DC as well within the political system.
I'm very thankful too, and trying to help the best I can. And it's interesting how you said that, because I think I've convinced myself that maybe what's happening now had to happen. That these systems they're broken. They were built for a day and an age that no longer exists, but yet they're still in place, and they're actually restricting our own growth. They were meant and achieved for a long time the growth of people, but that age is past. And so what I think the president has done is really disrupted everything in a really big way. And I think mindfulness and awareness and being awake is really important, because now we have to build new systems. You just look at all the systems, not to get completely on the soapbox, but you look at our healthcare system, where we spend 2.5 times more than any other industrialized country, and we get worse results. You look at our agricultural system, where we're producing food that is highly processed, not very good for us. It's making us sick. That bleeds into our healthcare system, where citizens in our country have either diabetes or pre-diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure. All of these things are on the rise. Not to mention the current agricultural system is causing algae blooms in our Great Lakes, dead zones at the mouth of rivers like the Mississippi, and we get warnings in places like Ohio, hey, if you go fishing, just eat 1 or 2 fish a month out of the river. And it's like, I'm a bit smarter than that. If you don't want me eating more than 2 of those things, I'm not going to eat any of them. So those are the kind of things that are happening. I mean, a broken criminal justice system, a broken immigration system that are racist and unfair, and all of these things. So all of these systems are broken. So the main point is, if we're going to rebuild new systems and see how they're all integrated, that needs to start from a place of awareness, seeing how these things are all connected, and being aware that we have to let go. We can maintain the values that kind of undergird the systems we have in place, worker safety, health, whatever the case may be. We can hold on to those values, but we need to build new systems on top of those values. And so that means letting go. That means tearing up the house and, like I said, throwing everything on the floor, and maybe buying a new couple pieces of furniture and restacking things in a different way. That's in essence what we have to do. And to me, that starts from a place of being awake, clear intentions, and from a place of awareness.
We always use the word mindfulness brings you into a space of essence. And it's that essence work that, once you're able to step into that, allows for compassion to step in. And nobody likes change. Change is a really difficult thing to do, but I agree with you. I think that what's happening right now is the disruption is so severe that change, sometimes has to get to the point where change seems like the easier route to go than dealing with like keeping it the way things are. But it has to. It's a good thing you do mindfulness, because just to survive in the atmosphere that you're in on a daily basis has to be so challenging.
Yeah, it's very helpful. And yet you're right. I mean, the only thing worse than change is not changing, and holding on to the past. And that takes a discipline, and it's something that we can achieve. and I think we're seeing a lot of energy moving towards, we want change because the current systems are so painful. And think about the kids in Parkland, you think about the DACA kids and the immigration system that we have. You think about criminal justice reform. You think about the economy in so many places, like globalization is not working for people. It's not that it's not happening. It's not that automation isn't happening. It's happening, and it's affecting a lot of communities. But our government and our policies' resistance to change with the times is locking people in that older economy and not plugging them into the newer economy, which can be, I think, very exciting if it's done properly, where people can participate and create and be innovative and be entrepreneurs. To me, that's a very exciting time. We just got to look at it that way and make sure everybody's safe and protected in the process through the transition. But let's create this new society. It could be a lot of fun. It sure beats the hell out of what we're doing now.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you interact with a lot of millennials in your position. And there's such I think, an abstract view right now of who these millennials are. From what I see, is they truly are the ones that can step in and say, all right, things are screwed up, let's redo them. So combined with the wisdom of your generation, and okay, feels like you were kind of in like a transition generation from the old industrial age of, just, the gifts that the unions gave us and all of that to kind of make that time period work well.
Right.
And that's just so far in the past. But what's your view on these millennials that are coming in that just seem to, from my perspective, just seem to get this? It just seems to be more ingrained within their awareness already.
Yeah, it's a beautiful crop of people. You see their activism, you see the energy, the sincerity, the authenticity that they bring to whatever it is that they're promoting. And it's kind of that replenishment that our democracy always needs. You need that next generation coming in, really bringing, a new energy to the political process, to our democracy. And I think they're doing it. And, what's interesting too is that, it's a very tolerant, they're colorblind, they don't think about gender. They're so inclusive. They're kids, so of course I'm sure they have their issues, but they're very accepting. And I think that's really a great example for us moving forward, is that recognition that our diversity that we have in the country is our greatest strength. And we've had leaders that have, and a lot of people with big microphones saying, that diversity is a weakness of ours, and we need to divide the country into us and them. And that, to me, is a recipe for disaster, economically, culturally, in so many, socially, in so many different ways. And these millennials are bringing that spirit of inclusion, the appreciation for diversity. And so if we recognize that our country's in a really stiff competition right now, obviously with everything Russia's doing to us with our elections and what they've been doing in Europe in elections, and the worldview of Vladimir Putin, which I've been studying up on the last few years, and you look at what China's doing economically to try to basically take over the United States, be a huge superpower, continue to build out in Africa and bases and all the rest. We won't get into all the details, but we're in a very stiff competition. But our greatest asset in that global competition is our diversity. And we need to start tapping into it. The millennials are helping us see that.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to allow anything else to happen. That's their agenda, but it's an instinctual one because they are young. They're just looking at this current state going, that just doesn't make any sense. So
yeah, and you know what? When you see, which has happened to me. Been married now 5 years, and I have 3 kids, and my wife had 2 from her previous marriage, and so Mason's 15 and Bella's 14, and then Brady's 4. But to see Mason and Bella at 14 and 15, and to think about the Parkland Kids, for example, to see the world through our eyes, it's like These kids are just asking that weapons of war aren't on the street that could potentially be brought into school and do what happened.
Right.
And when you see it through their eyes, you're like, yeah, I mean, that doesn't seem that ridiculous that we can't like fix that. I mean, like, but they're so clear eyed, like you said, they're so innocent. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, to discriminate against somebody because of the color of their skin, and to have the kind of institutional racism in our prisons and just throughout, our older institutions that were built on slavery, Jim Crow, go backwards. Those are still in the institutions. It's clear to them. It's obvious. And so they bring that fresh perspective that really gives us an opportunity to reflect. And so them coming into the political process while all this disruption has happened and all the pieces are on the ground, and if we can slow down and get back into our bodies and be in the present moment and with their energy, and as you said, our experience for those of us who are 40 or 45, it could be a very powerful movement to rebuild the country in a way that really does prepare them for a great, joyful life in our country.
Absolutely. Very well said. Yeah, and it sounds like the book is coming out again at a perfect time.
Yeah, I'm really hoping, everybody writes a book, hopes that people buy it, but I really hope it resonates with these young students and these young kids, because I think it could be helpful for them, because they're especially the ones that are being thrusted into the spotlight now. That comes with its challenges, especially when you're young. So to build a movement, I was just reading an article a couple of weeks ago about the Black Lives Matter movement. And there have been suicides and there's a lot of burnout, because when you get into these political campaigns that are day in and day out, there's not just one election. It's a broader campaign, a broader movement. Burnout, stress, pressure can really get to you. And if you want to sustain this in the long haul, practices like mindfulness and TM and these other meditative practices, and that there's many of them that people all got to find the one that works for them. But if that can get kind of integrated into these movements, it's going to have a lot more staying power, and you're going to continue to be connected to your values of why you're doing it in the first place. Then I know we're talking a little bit about schools here, but I see that with teachers who learn about social and emotional learning, learn about mindfulness, learn about the Quiet Time program through David Lynch Foundation, and other practices. The Art of Living has a great teacher training program. But when these teachers who have been in the field for 20 or 30 years, who are burnout, who haven't seen a pay raise, we see it in the teacher strike in West Virginia and Oklahoma and many of these other states, you're seeing the really decades of frustration within the teacher movement. When they do these practices, the most amazing part is that they reconnect with the purpose in which they got into teaching in the first place, which was to transform kids, to change their lives. I mean, we tease it's for the summer vacation and all that, but most teachers get in because they wanted to transform kids' lives. And over time and pressure and, the societal problems that they have to deal with in our area in Ohio, opiates and job loss and foreclosures, that all comes into the school. And one of our schools lost 17 parents last year to the opiate epidemic. Now imagine the ripple effect in the schools and the classrooms that the teachers are left to deal with. But this helps them stay connected to that initial motivation and that purpose that they have for getting in the first place. And so these practices, to me, as we rebuild, really are essential. And I say that as a old high school quarterback from Northeast Ohio, who most people would look at me and not think that this is kind of what I'm pushing, but to me, it's essential.
Well, Tim, you're a living example of that. I mean, you've been in office for since 2002. The stresses that you are involved with on a day-to-day basis, to me, you're a living example of that. So you speak of mindfulness and exude it, because you're talking about the Black Lives Matters and all these organizations that are so stressful for those people in the inner workings of, and you do it day in and day out as well. So thank you for being that example and being
Thank
that
you.
voice.
We're trying.
And can I ask, are you allowed to share what this new title is going to be so that I can look for it in the fall?
Yeah, Healing America.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
It
Well,
just, I wanted to do something that would maybe speak a little bit more to the times today, and I think people are looking for something like that.
yes, very much so. Well, I'm so thrilled to know that. I will definitely look for that. And thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you.
And hope to see you real soon. Just keep meditating.
You too. Thanks for having me. This was great.
Thanks, Tim.